When people think of global empires, a few mighty names often come to mind: Rome, the Mongol Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and others that once ruled vast lands. But standing above them all in terms of sheer global influence, lasting impact, and unmatched reach is the British Empire. At its height, the British Empire controlled nearly a quarter of the world's land and population. Its influence stretched across every continent, shaping trade, politics, culture, and even language in ways no empire before or after has done. What made this empire not just large, but the most powerful in history? Let us uncover the 5 critical reasons the British Empire rose to unmatched dominance. Reasons that go beyond mere conquest and tell the story of how a small island nation became a global titan. Naval supremacy and control of the seas. The heart of Britain's power lay not in its land army, but in its navy. The Royal Navy was the most formidable maritime force the world had ever seen. Through a combination of advanced shipbuilding, skilled sailors, and innovative naval tactics, Britain gained command of the seas. This naval supremacy allowed Britain to protect its trade routes, secure colonies, and defeat rival empires before they could pose a serious threat. Major victories like the defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588 and the crushing of the French fleet at Trafalgar in 1805 cemented Britain's reputation as the undisputed ruler of the oceans. With the seas under its control, Britain could project power across the globe, moving troops, goods, and influence wherever it chose. But the Navy did more than fight battles. It escorted merchant fleets, safeguarded vital trade routes, and enforced Britain's dominance over key choke points like the Suez Canal and the Strait of Gibraltar. The phrase, "the sun never sets on the British Empire," was not just poetic. It was a direct result of Britain's ability to reach every corner of the world by sea. And here is a thought to consider. In an age when landlocked empires faded or broke apart, Britain's command of the oceans turned it into a power without borders, ruling not just nations but the very highways of global trade. The Industrial Revolution and economic dominance. While the British Navy ruled the seas, the Industrial Revolution turned Britain into the workshop of the world. In the 18th and 19th centuries, Britain became the first nation to industrialize, unleashing a wave of technological innovation that transformed economies, warfare, and daily life. Factories in cities like Manchester, Birmingham, and London produced textiles, steel, and machinery at unprecedented scales. Innovations in steam power manufacturing and transportation allowed Britain to dominate global markets. British goods flowed into every continent, from the factories of England to the ports of India, Africa, and the Americas. But Britain's economic power did not end with production. British banks and financial institutions became the backbone of global trade, financing projects, underwriting wars, and establishing London as a center of world finance. The British pound sterling became a global currency, trusted and traded in every corner of the earth. The industrial boom also fed Britain's imperial ambitions. With factories hungry for raw materials and markets eager for finished goods, the empire grew as a vast network of supply and demand. Colonies provided cotton, tea, rubber, and minerals, while British factories supplied them with manufactured goods. Here is something remarkable. Britain's industrial strength did not just enrich the empire, it tied the world into an economic system that centered on British power. The empire became not only a political force, but an economic engine that drove global trade for over a century. Strategic colonization and the creation of global networks. Unlike some empires that expanded through sheer conquest alone, Britain often used a strategic mix of colonization, trade, diplomacy, and local alliances. British expansion was not always about annexing vast lands. Often it was about controlling key ports, trade routes, and strategic territories that gave the empire outsized influence. Britain established colonies and trading posts in areas critical to global commerce: India, Hong Kong, Singapore, the Cape of Good Hope, and many islands in the Caribbean and Pacific. These outposts created a web of influence that connected the empire across continents. This strategy of indirect control allowed Britain to govern vast populations with relatively few administrators. By working with local elites, using economic leverage, and establishing cultural ties through education and law, Britain managed an empire that was both expansive and efficient. And here is a striking truth: Britain did not need to conquer everything to control everything. By mastering key regions and trade hubs, it built a network of power that kept the empire strong even in distant lands. Cultural influence and the spread of the English language. One of the most lasting legacies of the British Empire is not its borders or battles, but its cultural influence. As Britain expanded its reach, it spread its language, legal systems, educational models, and social customs across the world. English became the language of global trade, diplomacy, science, and law. Today, it remains the most widely spoken second language and the dominant language in international business and communication. This is no accident. It is a direct result of Britain's global presence, its control over key territories, and its cultural influence during the height of the empire. British legal systems, particularly common law, were adopted in many colonies and remain in place even after independence. Parliamentary governance, free market economics, and British-style education systems also took root in former colonies. But cultural influence went beyond formal structures. British literature, sports like cricket and football, and even social norms spread across continents. The empire's influence shaped everything from language to lifestyle, leaving marks that still define societies today. Adaptation, resilience, and legacy. After the empire, no empire lasts forever. But what sets the British Empire apart is how it adapted to changing times and maintained influence even after formal colonial rule ended. Unlike empires that collapsed into obscurity, Britain transformed its imperial relationships into new forms of cooperation and global leadership. The Commonwealth of Nations emerged as a voluntary association of former colonies, promoting cooperation in trade, education, and diplomacy. Though Britain no longer ruled these nations, it maintained ties that fostered mutual interests and shared values. Moreover, Britain's legacy endured in global institutions. The British legal tradition influenced the formation of international courts. The English language became central to organizations like the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. Even today, London remains a global center of finance and culture. Britain also showed remarkable resilience during global conflicts. It played a critical role in both world wars, defending not just its empire but the broader balance of power in Europe and the world. After World War II, even as the empire faded, Britain reinvented itself as a key ally in global alliances like NATO. And here is a reflection worth pondering. The true power of an empire is not just in its conquest, but in its ability to adapt, leave a legacy, and remain relevant even when its formal empire ends. The British Empire did all of these, setting it apart in the history of the world. The empire that ruled beyond borders. The British Empire's story is not just one of conquest or naval battles. It is the story of a nation that mastered the seas, harnessed the power of industry, built strategic networks, shaped global culture, and adapted to changing times. Its influence touched every corner of the earth, and its legacy continues in language, law, trade, and culture. No other empire in history combined military power, economic strength, strategic diplomacy, and cultural influence with the same effectiveness. While the physical empire may have ended, the echoes of British power still resonate across the modern world. If you found this deep dive into the rise of the British Empire fascinating, make sure to watch our next video on the fall of the Aztecs, how 500 conquistadors defeated a civilization. See you there.